Alright, what is up, guys? Today we're going to be here with Colin MacArthur and myself, Damian Schleicher. We're going to be talking a little about the Night book and a bit how it relates to our life and the theme and stuff like that. So what do you have to say about that?
Night by Elie Wiesel was published in 1960 and talks about World War II and his experience through the Holocaust and being discriminated against. But, what do you have to say about it?
Well, I think it's kind of rough because Elie, or he went by Eliza, right? When he was younger, Eliza.
I think so,
I think
yeah.
something with a Z. But yeah, when he was younger, at such a young age, I feel it's tragic that he got ripped away from his family. If that happened to me, I just like my emotionally mental state, it would just be off the charts. So I'm surprised he made it through it, and I'm thankful that he can make a book to talk about his experience. So yeah, let's get into it. All right. So after reading this book called Night by Elie Wiesel, I'm not really totally sure about that. I had to think about a self-connection for this podcast, and what I came to think of is that I probably don't cherish my family enough because Elie Wiesel, he gets his family stripped away from him at such a young age, like I said, and yeah, that's just truly heartbreaking to see your father, because Elie Wiesel, his father was going through some hard times, and your father, he's like the firm foundation in your household. He's the guy who you can always rely on to be masculine and kind of just there as a protector. So I think it's rough that Elie Wiesel had to go through this, and he had to lose his dad's fatherhood and dignity throughout the course of the story. Personally, though, I was brought to the conclusion that I should spend more time with my family because I have not had them stripped away from me, and I pray that none of that happens anytime soon. But especially coming around Christmas season, I think it's important that I make sure to appreciate them for what they are, and they're loving and kind people. So what about you?
My self-connection, as Damien said, with Knight and Wiesel's connection with his family and his father. And obviously the Jews were discriminated in the Holocaust heavily. I had somewhat of a situation, not to the same level or intensity, but I was kind of pushed out of different friend groups or different stuff just because of my personality or some other things. But mainly that was I didn't want to change myself, and obviously I can't change myself, just like Wiesel can't change his race and just be all of a sudden excluded from the Holocaust. It also can compare to the segregation you see in the civil rights movement, and of course that and the Holocaust, same idea with race and people's families, their connection.
But yeah, definitely going back to that personal point, the discrimination part, I definitely could agree that I have faced that on a lesser level compared to what Elie Wiesel has. But yeah, I think he's very persistent throughout the course of the book, and we could definitely use a little bit of his persistence in our life too. All right, cool. Now that we got that first subject over with, let's talk a little bit about the author's purpose in writing this one more. I think, relating back to pi that we learned earlier in English class, I think it's very informative to the fact where Elie Wiesel is explaining his experience and quite horrific events that occurred during Holocaust. I know it's a fictional story to some degree, but on the other hand, to some degree, it's also his personal experience. So I think his purpose in writing this memoir was definitely to point out the severity of this event and the mistreatment of the Jews during this time. What you have to say about that?
Yeah, well, I found a good example in the text of his kind of message to his readers. He said, "Never shall I forget that night, the first night in camp, which has turned my life into one long night." I think this line more captures the moment, and Wiesel and his family and his fellow prisoners were stripped of their humanity and their kind of identities outside of the concentration camps.
Pointing back to saying stripped of their humanity, I'd like to point out a quote as well from the novel. It says, "From the depths of the mirror, a corpse gazed back at me." So this is like, was this after, or, okay, in the novel, this was when Elie, he realized that he's been through so much, and he just looks in the mirror, and I can just imagine it in my head. I can imagine, oh my gosh, what has it come to be? Like, what has happened throughout my life? What's gone so bad to this point where, as he said, he's staring at a corpse, and that just gets me to think I'm really blessed to have food every day and go to this great school. But that's just a little something.
Yeah. Well, going back to my quote, I feel like, the context of the quote, when obviously he first arrives and witnessing like a whole other experience, like almost like comparing, like, say the U.S., like a first world country, to like a third world country. It's just totally different and not like his normal experience. And by writing this moment, I feel like Wiesel emphasizes upon the trauma he experiences and the loss of his like innocence and faith.
Yeah, he talks a lot about how he loses his trust in God.
Yeah. And then just all around good imagery, speaking to the reader's like consciousness, while everyone kind of suffers and even makes the reader kind of question some things inside their heads. But just reinforcing his sharing of traumatic and horrible experiences. Another example I do have is this other quote. He said, "I had no right to let myself die. What would he do without me? I was no longer arguing with him, but with death itself, with death that he had already chosen." I think this moment, this moment happens when Wiesel is motivated to survive and motivated by the love for his father. This illustrating the theme of bonds with others and the struggle for survival amidst despair and tragedy. By sharing his internal conflict with his situation, kind of showing the message that love can persist even through the darkest times, and love will always be there for you. Just encouraging readers to like find strength in their connections with their family, their friends, anybody that really impacts them. Helping you show that the power of your mind and connections are more powerful than anything else, really.
So I actually have a quote. It's about not a personal connection with Elie Wiesel himself, but kind of the events that were going on during the time of Holocaust. It says, infants were tossed into the air and used as targets for machine guns. I think this quote, it truly illustrates the horrific events occurring during the time of this Holocaust, and how, because infants are truly at their most vulnerable point, they don't have anything they could do to defend themselves or anything in that area. So I think it's cruel and horrific how this could happen in any time. But yeah, let's go on to another topic. Let's just talk about how does this memoir connect to our world today?
So, connecting with the world today with this memoir, comparing it to COVID, obviously, the disease from a couple years back,
I know what you're
comparing
saying.
the Holocaust killed almost 6 million Jews from Hitler and the Holocaust, but COVID also killed around 7 million people worldwide from the start of it to March of 2023. So only about a 3-year period-ish, which is about the same as the Holocaust, with very high death tolls.
Relating to the death toll, both events, humans were locked out away from society, and in the home specifically, I know that if my mom had COVID, I would basically have to social distance from her, which is not the same level of separation the people in the Holocaust undergo, but it was definitely a lot harder, especially because my mother specifically, she cared for me in times where, I don't know, I needed some support because couldn't see many friends, and she would make my food, but she wasn't very capable of that when she was in bed or sick if she had COVID. So the separation is definitely a little bit similar, guys, today. And thank you, Colin. Are there any final words you'd like to say to the audience before we let them go?
I just like to remind them about like these certain events and kind of almost learning about them to translate to other parts of your life, almost, as the Holocaust being a horrible event. It's helps you learn to stay tight with your family and stay tight with the people that are close to you, and making sure that you stay connected with what truly matters.
Family is definitely most important. Gotta keep them close because you won't have them forever. Well, thank you for tuning in today. Again, oh my gosh, what did I just say? Thank you again, guys, for tuning in today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you, Miss Milligan. I hope we get 100%. Yeah.